Coming up, how to make menopause the best time of your life.
Welcome to Having It All, Lifestyles of the Rich and Conscious with MarBeth Dunn, featuring experts and pioneers in health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality, creating a happier, healthier, wealthier you. And now, here's our host, MarBeth Dunn.
She's the #1 international best-selling author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. Welcome, Pat Duckworth, to the Having It All Show.
Oh, it's such fun to be here, MarBeth.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to have you. This is wonderful. Why don't you tell us the backstory to Hot Women Rock?
Okay, so I became an entrepreneur quite late in life, in my mid 50s. I left my background job as a senior civil servant, and I just got so unhappy with it and really wanted to pursue something of helping people. And I retrained as a hypnotherapist, and I specialized into this area around midlife and menopause, because I really don't think there's enough help and advice out there for women at this time of life. And from that, I started talking to other midlife entrepreneurs. And then I was invited to go and speak in India in 2016. So in 2015, they said to me, would I like to go and speak in India? And I thought, well, I'd love to speak. And I'd love to speak, as that's a country of entrepreneurs, about becoming an entrepreneur and to write the story and some advice for other midlife entrepreneurs. And then as soon as I started talking about that book, other women started giving me their entrepreneurial stories. And I just found them so inspiring. I thought, well, this would be great to include these stories in the book, because I need to say to other women, you know, it's not just me that's done this. There's so many women who get to that point in their life where they stop and reassess and they say, I'm not happy with what I've got now, and I'm going to make a big change. Does that make sense to you, MarBeth?
You know, I've done that 4 times, so.
Yeah.
I am a serial entrepreneur, so it makes total sense to me.
Yeah, for some women that, you know, they might take on jobs in the early part of their lives where really they're looking for security and work-life balance because they're bringing up their family, and it's not about them. It's focused outside of themselves. And then they get to this midlife point where the kids have grown up. Perhaps they've left home. They don't need so much support. And the women can grow into themselves and say, right, what was it that I always wanted to do? And, you know, perhaps they'll have that entrepreneurial background, or maybe it'll be entirely new to them. So that's what I wanted to put in that book, was to say, you know, it's all about developing the right mindset to become an entrepreneur. This isn't about all the practical nuts and bolts. This is about what's going on inside your head that can make you really strong in what you're doing. And here's some examples of women that have done it. So I put that book together. It ended up with 21 women's stories in it, as well as the kind of the mindset model. And that's what I took to India and talked about there, and then launched later in the year in the UK and globally.
I think there's something universal about women in the 50s that need to transition into thinking more about themselves and what they want to do. I know I went through it as well. And, you know, as you're talking, and I loved your book, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I do remember my own experience with it, and just really realizing that I had given so much to other people, and now it was my time to do what I wanted to do. And that's where I am today.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's why I've heard, you know, this thing of my time, because so often women are giving so much to other people in the earlier stages of their lives, to their partners, their children, perhaps to older parents as well. And then they just get to this point where, as their body's changing, as menopause comes around, it's a real reminder or a wake-up call that time is passing, and if you want to do something, now's the time to grab that opportunity. That's how I see it anyway. It's that real, as you say, a transition point in life where it's a time to reassess and think, well, what did I really want to get from my life? What was my dream? What was my purpose?
Absolutely. Well, you certainly did capture it so well. And what I liked about your book as well is that not only did you give information, but there were also some excellent exercises to help women get in touch with what they really want to do and figure out how to do it.
Yeah, because I say this is, there's an entrepreneurial mindset, because it's not like going to a job where you know what you're going to do every day. What I find with successful entrepreneurs is that they're evolving all the time. I mean, I know that your career has been one of just carrying on evolving. And so you have to be able to have that emotional resilience that allows you to bounce back when things don't go right, because they don't always go right, to take the learning from it. And from that learning, just get stronger and stronger in what you're doing. That's just so important.
So not only do you specialize in entrepreneurial midlife women, but it's also women who are going through the transition of menopause.
Yeah. It's been a busy week for me. I've been talking a lot about that this week because of International Women's Day.
Of course.
And because, I found when I was getting to menopause, there's not that much advice for what you can do, all of the options for how you can handle it that are really going to be supportive to you. So a lot of women think either I take hormone replacement therapy or there's nothing for me. And, certainly for women my age, I'm in my early 60s now, it wasn't something that my mother talked to me about. And in fact, she had a hysterectomy. So, it wasn't something that she knew how it would occur naturally. But I'll be fair, MarBeth, she wouldn't have talked about it anyway. But I found even with women, women in their 40s now, when I talk to them, it's not something they've talked to their mothers about or they've talked to their female relatives about. And there's a real general poor level of understanding of what's going on in that stage of life. So when I wrote my first book, Hot Women Cool Solutions, it was really to give some education around what's going on at menopause and when you can expect it and what it might be like. But then all of the things that you can take control of so that your experience of it is a good experience, a positive experience.
So what can you take control of?
So much. Now, I'm not a nutritionist, but one of the things that I've really found out is the importance of what you're eating and drinking at this time of life, because we can lose that connection between what we're eating and drinking, which are the building blocks of our body and our emotions. And, so you might suddenly find that there's some things that you're eating that when you think about it are generating hot flushes. I mean, hot flushes are the thing that's most going to drive women to try and seek help because they're so out of the ordinary and they can be perceived as being so embarrassing. If you're sitting in a room full of men or you're standing up to do a talk or you're in a group over dinner and suddenly you're really hot and sweating, it can just feel like the worst moment. So understanding that what you eat and drink, so some of the things that are really common triggers for hot flushes are things like red meat, sugary foods, caffeine, I'm sorry to say it, but alcohol. If you if you start to keep a record of what you're eating and the experience that you're having after it, you can start to notice what your triggers are, your food and drink triggers. So the first thing that I always advise women, and when they come to me for therapy, I send them out a workbook in advance so that they can really start to notice the connection between their food and drink and what they're experiencing. And then from that, you can start to look at the foods and drink that will support you. You know, this isn't all about taking stuff out of your diet. There's things you can put into your diet that are going to be much more supportive. So there's things like the phytoestrogens, the plant estrogens that you can eat that will help to replace some of the estrogen that you're losing. You know, at this stage of life, your reproductive hormones are going into decline, and you can support them. So the phytoestrogens you find in things like fermented soya, not raw soya. So some women swap their dairy milk for a soya milk. That's not a great idea. That sort of soya is not helping you. It's the fermented soya. It's things like miso and tempeh. You know, those are and tofu. Putting those things in your diet are going to be helpful. Things like lentils and chickpeas, flax seeds or linseeds, things like sweet potatoes instead of eating ordinary potatoes. You know, sweet potatoes got a lot of beta carotene in them, so it's really good at that stage of life. So really that very first step is looking at what you're eating and drinking. That's the first thing you can get in control of.
Nice. I love it. And I'm very much a proponent of my watching diets. I think the Western diet is really not good for people in the long run. We'll be back to our show in just a moment. Would you agree that the current state of the world is angry, chaotic, turbulent, and possibly insane? And that's not even mentioning everyone's personal issues. We all need miracles, and now is the time. I'm MarBeth Dunn, the Miracle Mama. Imagine a river of miracles flowing into your life, bringing harmonious relationships, better health, prosperity, clarity, peace of mind, and a deep sense of joy. What if you could know all your needs are being met and feel calm and peaceful even in the midst of turbulent change? Get your free guide now, 7 Easy Ways to Harness the Power of Miracles at miracles101.com. That's miracles101.com and live your miraculous life.
And, you know, in other parts of the world where there's much more of an indigenous diet, where it hasn't gone to this kind of Western refined food, you find that women have a much better experience of menopause. So women in India, you might think, well, they're eating spicy food, they're going to get hot, but they're eating lentils, they're not eating so much red meat, they're eating more vegetables. And so they're going to tend not to have the same number of symptoms that we have. And, you know, when I first started getting hot flushes, it was just before I was going on a trip to Japan. I spent 2 weeks in Japan eating kind of local Japanese food. I didn't have a hot flush. It's just extraordinary because I was eating the soyas. I wasn't eating so much red meat. I was drinking green tea with lots of antioxidants in it. I wasn't drinking much in the way of alcohol. So everything was supporting my system for that time of life. So, and you know, in Japanese, there is no term for hot flushes. They don't know what they are.
I love it.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
And it really worries me that, you know, a lot of Japanese food now is starting to reflect what we eat in the West. I was in Japan again recently, and you see much more bread. They never ate bread. You know, and now we're seeing bread coming in and a lot more sweet stuff. When they make sandwiches, they make them out of crazy combinations of sweet and sour stuff. I can't think of what one would be, but you look at sandwiches and you think, really? How did you think of that one? It might be kind of like chicken and raisins and honey or something, and it just looks so weird. So I really hope they don't start adopting the way that we eat in the West, because it will change their experience of some of these natural phases in life.
It totally will. I never did have a hot flash. So.
Oh, wow. You've been eating the right things.
I must have been. But I do.
You know, that's just one of the options. You know, there are so many complementary therapies that we can use.
Like what?
So, I mean, obviously my specialization is in mind-body work. So it's that getting the head to the right space and being able to use our mind to control symptoms. And, you know, if you're feeling hot, just by picturing cool images, you're sending that message into your system to cool itself down. It's like, you know, if you're watching the TV and, you know, where you live, it's warm all year round. It's not like that where I live. But if you were sitting there and you're feeling lovely and warm and snug, and then something comes on the TV and it's a picture of the Arctic or the Antarctic, and there's icebergs and there's penguins, you might suddenly start to feel a little bit cold because your brain is picking up that image and it's associating it with feeling cold. And just by picturing that kind of image, whatever really makes sense for you, you can start to cool yourself down. And the other thing is that a lot of women, their hot flashes and other symptoms like getting poor sleep, which is, you know, a really common symptom at menopause, is triggered by stress and anxiety. And the more you can relax, the more you can learn techniques to calm you down. So even just really simply, if you breathe out for longer than you breathe in, you start to relax your body. So if you start to feel a little bit hot or like your heart's speeding up a bit, if you can just take 1 to 3 minutes out, get in touch with your breathing, start to count on the in-breath, count for longer on the out-breath, you start to trigger your parasympathetic system. It starts to calm you down. And with the calmness, you start to calm your heart down and you get more in control, because, you know, the hot flush is a cardiovascular response. So the more you can get that calmness and relaxation going through your system, the more anti-inflammatory it is.
We'll be back to our show in just a moment. Would you agree that the current state of the world is angry, chaotic, turbulent, and possibly insane? And that's not even mentioning everyone's personal issues. We all need miracles, and now is the time. I'm MarBeth Dunn, the Miracle Mama. Imagine a river of miracles flowing into your life, bringing harmonious relationships, better health, prosperity, clarity, peace of mind, and a deep sense of joy. What if you could know all your needs are being met and feel calm and peaceful even in the midst of turbulent change? Get your free guide now, 7 easy ways to harness the power of miracles at miracles101.com. That's miracles101.com, and live your miraculous life. Yes, that's wonderful. I was thinking also that since we have so much body wisdom, our bodies are always communicating with us and giving us messages that we may not be hearing. We may not be tapped into understanding what the body's saying. So when you're getting a hot flash, your body is saying something is off here. You need to take a look at what's going on.
And it's certainly time to look at whether, you know, you need to just release some anxiety, to relax, because, yeah, your body is saying to you, you know, I'm trying to burn something up here. And it could just be that you need to take some time out and look at your lifestyle and think, what can I do to get a bit more relaxation, a bit more calm? And you do those lovely meditations, MarBeth, and, you know, a bit of mindfulness and meditation is just so good for calming the body down, because stress is such an inflammatory to the system. Because as soon as you start to get stressed, you're releasing cortisol and adrenaline into the system, and they're inflammatories. They start to warm you up. And by meditating, being mindful, you're cooling it all down. You're just allowing your body to get into its natural balance and rhythm. So, some of your meditations, MarBeth.
That's true. Well, also, when you're stressed and you're upset and you're really not connected to yourself, you're not in alignment with yourself. And, I'm all about miracles. And it's very hard to attract miracles when you're in a very stressed state. So your body's basically saying, hey, you're out of alignment here. Let's get you back in alignment. First thing, get yourself peaceful. And how do you do that? It's to stop and breathe and also to meditate. And you can do meditation through your breath, as you know. So just a minute or two of conscious breathing brings you back into being conscious and present and in the here and now, which is when you start to shift into a much better place.
Absolutely. And there have been research projects that have looked at menopause and looked at them all around the world. And women who live in countries where the culture is more positive about older women, those women have a much better experience of menopause, because if you're living in a culture where you're associating getting older with somehow losing power, generally with loss, not just, I've lost my periods, I've lost my reproductivity. If you're associating it all with loss, that's very much a lack mindset. Whereas if you're in a culture that sees you as you get older as having more wisdom, of having more to offer other people, then, that's a very positive mindset. And, just guess who has the better experience of getting older. So that's what I try and introduce my clients to as well, is instead of thinking about the loss, is being really positive about who they are and what they're doing with this next phase of their life, what they can do for themselves and how they're going to develop as people in this next phase. I think that's just so important.
It's so important. And I love what you're doing. So often, and you touched on that feeling of loss. I've lost my youth. I've lost my beauty. Now I've lost my reproductive capacity. And those feelings of loss, we may not even be conscious of having. But because of our Western culture that's so focused on youth and beauty and being young and beautiful, that it's very easy to unconsciously feel that loss and start to contract into almost a depression.
Yeah, and a lot of the women that come and see me are going into that depression. And, one of the interesting things about menopause is that human beings are one of the only two mammals who have a menopause. In other words, that they stop reproducing before the end of their lives. The other mammals who have a menopause are whales. Of all creatures, it's whales. Every other mammal continues to be able to reproduce all the way through their life. And so one school of thought is that the reason why humans have a menopause is that there is such value in the status of grandmother. So that having older women who aren't reproductive means that those women support productive women and their children. And, I don't know a lot about whales, but I know that they live in pods and supportive communities. And it may be that kind of grandmother whales are really important in that structure as well. So it's really about, well, who are you at this later stage in life, and understanding your value, not just within your family, but within your community, with all of that experience and that knowledge and the wisdom that you've gathered over the years.
Oh, I love that. I find that we do birth ideas and all types of things. We are very creative, and that continues on. It can continue on, into older age. And I think that reproductive function is about being creative. And now our creativity has shifted into a different phase. And I think it's very important to cultivate that, to really get in touch with who you are and share that. And there's so much wisdom that we have to share. So I think this is really a wonderful topic that you've touched on.
I just think it's beautiful that we can get to, some women say, it's so horrible going through menopause. It's a privilege to get to this age because, the average age of menopause is around 50. And it has stayed at that age for hundreds of years, despite the changes in our lifestyle and our diets and our exercise. It's been this age for hundreds of years. And, a lot of women never had the privilege of getting to 50.
That's so true.
And, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, so many women didn't make it this far. So it's a huge privilege to get to this age and be able to do something so creative and constructive. I'm just excited about this phase of my life.
I know. I really wish you were passionate about it.
I know. I just couldn't care less.
Yeah. So you get to travel now. What a shift to go from a public service career for how many years? 30 years, and then transition into doing something that is so creative and helpful, and you have totally reinvented yourself. What a model you are for your clients.
I know. I'm just loving it all. I loved, that early phase of my life was totally right for me then, and I really enjoyed most of it. It was only in the final year that it stopped suiting me and who I was. And now I'm traveling. So far this year, I've been to The Hague and to Fort Lauderdale. I'm off to Spain and then India and Denmark. And then hopefully I'm going to Cyprus later in the year. I've been to Wales this week. That's not a huge journey, but that was fun. So, getting that opportunity to spread this word to other women, because it's not, just us who have this lack of knowledge. I've found it in so many places. I just want to get this knowledge out there.
It's so important, and it's so interesting that there really isn't that much attention that has been really given to this information. Now it's like we can become sages as older women. We can be wise women. And why not? Yeah,
I love the label wise woman because I just love learning. You know what I'm like. I just love learning, but it's never learning to keep it to myself. I learn so I can share it. If I've learned something, I want to tell 10 other people. I can't stop myself from sharing stuff. And, there's so much I've learned about this, and there's so many women who need to understand it more.
Well, what advice do you have for women that are going through menopause and haven't really explored their options?
Yeah, so do that research. Understand that there are lots of things you can do. If for you're getting really extreme symptoms and frequent symptoms and you think the only solution for you is medication, well, there is that option. But understand that there is so much else out there in the way of complementary, homeopathy, acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, herbalism, aromatherapy. There are so many things that you can do, as well as looking at your diet. And what I'd like to say to women is, be an intelligent client. If you are going to seek help, do your background research and start to understand what will suit you. There's not one size fits all. Every menopause is personal to that woman, and what suits you is going to be something that you're going to need to explore for yourself.
I like that. And that's so true, because we are all unique individuals. So why should we have a one-size-fits-all solution? It just doesn't necessarily work for everyone. Very good point. I like that. So you have a free gift that we're going to have up on our show page. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
I just love being a hot woman rather than a menopausal woman, and I think most other women feel that too. There's a whole bunch of free bonus gifts that women can sign up to. So there's a menopause workbook, there are some relaxation, hypnotic tracks that you can download. There's so much information on there, and I really hope that your listeners who are experiencing menopause will just go there and find what they need.
Well, all that information will be on your show page on TheHavingItAllShow.com.
Hot Women Rock, I produced it as an audio book as well. But I am happy to send a free copy, a link, so that one of your listeners can pick up a free copy.
The winner of the free copy of the Hot Women Rock audiobook will be the first person to contact Pat Duckworth from the Having It All show page and mention that you want the free copy of Hot Women Rock audiobook, and the first person will get that book. I love it.
Excellent.
And all your information, how to contact you, your social media information, it will all be up on the Having It All show website for Pat Duckworth. This has really been wonderful, Pat. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all your wonderful information. You know, you're going to help so many women.
Thank you, MarBeth. You know you're a hot woman and you're rocking all the time. You are such an inspiration to us all.
Oh, thank you, Pat.
Join MarBeth next week on The Having It All Show, Lifestyles of the Rich and Conscious. Visit TheHavingItAllShow.com now to learn more about MarBeth and her special guests and download your free report.